Hi everyone, I'm Tom and today I'm going to be showing you Nightmare Cathedral, which is a new game designed by Blažej Kubicki, published by Board&Dice, and it's on Gamefound right now. I will put the campaign page in the description and in the corner of the screen for you to check out if you would like to know more. This is a prototype of the game. It should give you a very good idea of what the final thing will look like. But just look at all of these pieces. In the world of dreams and nightmares, we have the opportunity to follow our personal dreams and goals. We can perform rituals to try and achieve lucidity, or give in to the nightmare and try and satisfy the devouring hunger of the Nightmare Cathedral itself, which will be built over the course of the game. I know from above, you can only really see the supports, but hey, this thing's going to get built. So here I've got a 2-player game set up. I realise I'm zoomed out quite a way. The board's very big. Hopefully you can see it. We have units. We have our dreamers that are going to help us select actions. We have fortresses. These are forts with a special fortress thing around them. Anyone with a fort will always control that area. And if it's your fortress, you can never lose it. You can lose other forts. We have little follower pieces as well that are going to be moving around and taking part in conflicts with other players and with these shadows, these neutral pieces that will be spawning alongside ours and are probably going to get fought quite a bit. And later on, consumed by nightmares. In a turn of Nightmare Cathedral, we have this track going around the outside of the action selection, and it's going to tell us basically whose turn it is. So I am the first player, and each turn is going to alternate. The symbols on each of the spaces correspond to the symbols out here on the board. Sometimes actions and cards will make things happen to all of the marked spaces. The marked spaces are the ones with that symbol showing. This is, by the way, a 2-player side of the board. It's a 1 to 4 player game. There's going to be a solo mode as well. The other side of the board is for 3 and 4 players. There's more spaces, although some are blocked off in a 3-player game. So I am the first player. I chose to put my dreamer on this night space. My dreamer is now going to wake up and choose an action. I cannot choose an action that I am adjacent to. So these actions, the summon and perform ritual actions, are off limits to me this turn. I'm going to have to choose from one of these 3. After I've done the action, you can see the arrows show you which night space you will be pushed off onto, and that's going to limit your action selection next turn. And it's going to have some ramifications for whether you're allowed to follow up on certain actions players perform. So what are the actions? Everyone has the same types of actions in that we've got fortify, maneuver, summon, perform ritual, and develop. But right from the first turn of the game, each player has one of these actions upgraded. We draw from the development deck until each player has an upgrade. So I start off with an upgraded develop card. Now, there isn't a kind of set in stone upgrade to the cards. The basic develop card has the same main action. The main action is what will happen if you choose this on your turn. Play up to 2 cards, one of them can be an upgrade, then draw a card. Well, on the upgrade, that's the exact same text. But then we have conform and dissent. These will happen when somebody else chooses develop on their turn. You will have options to conform or dissent. My upgraded action is a bit more powerful when I play it to conform or dissent. So when someone else does develop, really. So I'm allowed to do it. I could maneuver. So I can go on this space. The marker reminds us it's my turn. I chose this. I'm on here to show you that it's a maneuver. The maneuver action gives you 4 movement points. So you can spend these movement points on your followers and your shaper. Your followers are going to take part in conflicts. They will be moving around and trying to gain you control of areas. But that's not the be-all and end-all of the game. It's not like a lot of area control games where points are awarded just for controlling the most areas or certain lucrative areas. The points kind of come from other places. You'll get points from the ritual track. We have these dream cards in our hands that are personal goals. When you've satisfied those, you can hand those in for points. Building forts out on the board that are 2 or 3 levels high are worth points. And then later on in the game, once the nightmares have emerged, having the most of your followers devoured by a nightmare will result in a lot of points as well. So for a maneuver action, I've got 4 movement points. I start out with a few things out on the board. I'm going to do some movement points, then I can perform a conversion and then resolve 3 conflicts. So I think I'm going to move 1, 2, 3, 4. So each thing takes a movement point. Then I can perform a conversion in my shaper's area. So right away, I'm initiating conflict. It's almost as if I want to show it off. When you perform a conversion, you basically take off a piece that isn't yours, and it goes back to the other player's supply. You can do this with a shadow as well. And one of your followers goes in its place. So I've kind of tip the balance of whatever fight might happen in this area. Then I can resolve 3 conflicts. Now, the conflicts don't have to involve you at all. Conflicts are just an area where there are different colors of players' units. The shaper is not a unit, does not count towards area control. It's just there for purposes like convert where your shaper is and many other things. Now, the only conflicts on the board do involve me. So I think we could try out, let's do the conflict against this shadow. We have 1 unit each. I can play cards equal to the number of followers I have in there. I do have a limit. Unless I upgrade my Fortify action, I have a unit limit of 3. So I can at most have 3 units in an area. But that applies to all players. There could be, 9 units in there. 3 of mine, 3 of Marty's, and 3 of the shadows. I start off with 4 development cards in my hand, 3 from the deck, and this basic combat card that will always come back to you. If I choose to play a different card for its combat effects, I'm losing out on another action. Multi-use cards, including a great combat action, is on an upgrade card. I could play this and upgrade one of my actions, but it could help me out in combat. So 1 card for every follower and every fort you have in the area. So no matter how high the fort is, you can play 1 extra card for having your fort in there. Since I'm fighting a shadow, the shadow draws from the combat deck, and we basically compare the cards. So I did play that big upgrade card. It gives me a defense and an attack. And we look at the conflict card over here. This shows us how many of the shadows are in there. It's just 1. So we look at this row. They have a defense and a shield. So actually, nothing happened because a shield absorbs an attack. So we each attack each other and block that attack. Now, when you are fighting shadows only, you can get rewards if you are victorious. The victor basically controls the area. Or if you're defeated, usually more shadows will come out, but the card will tell you what happens. So now we need to work out who won or lost. First of all, the side with any fort levels wins. There are no forts in here. Otherwise, the side with the most units wins. Otherwise, the active player decides who won. So I think I'll decide that I won. The losing side has to move all their units to any adjacent area that they control, or they've got a presence, or they're empty. So you've got to control if you've got the most things. If areas are empty, the shadow player controls them anyway. So the shadow can retreat along a path to a place where it's got presence. And only for fighting shadows we can resolve the victory or defeat. I was victorious. I can spend a follower from the conflict area to climb a step on the ritual track. So it's not ideal. I will lose this follower and therefore control of the area that I just gained. But it is nice going up the ritual track, and I can show it to you. Yeah, I will lose that follower. So it goes back to my supply, and we can look at the ritual track. I just go up here. Later on, you can go to spaces that will give you rewards and grant you points. You have 2 ritual markers. So for getting both ritual markers all the way to the end, you can get 26 points. There are not a lot of points to be had in a game. 26 points on the ritual track would be pretty massive. But you've got to do a lot of work to get both markers all the way over here. The combat card I played is gone, and then I don't have to do any more, but we could resolve a player versus player conflict as well. So I have 3 followers to Marty's 1 here because I did that conversion. The player who controls the area plays their card second. So Marty can only play 1 card, and he's going to have to choose what he wants to do. So he chooses a card, and then I can decide what I want to do, and I might not want to lose any more cards. I just want to play my basic combat that will come back to me. But no, I want to try, in case Marty's put a shield down, I want to get rid of his presence from this area. It's just how I feel. So Marty played his basic combat card. So that goes right back to him. He doesn't lose anything. Combat effects. He does a damage. I do 2 damage. So he didn't play any shields. He does 1 damage and gets rid of one of my followers. When followers are killed in combat, they go to limbo. Not shadows. They don't need to. But our followers go to limbo. And it can be really advantageous to have people in limbo, especially when we're doing the ritual action. Marty's follower goes to limbo, and I am in control here. Now, the difference in the player versus player conflict, it's only for gaining leverage over the areas, really. Or you might, in some situations, want more people to go to limbo. You might want to lose a conflict and get more people in there to help you with a ritual that you're finding difficult. You might want a certain number of characters in limbo for a dream goal that you have. So that's all of the bits from my maneuver action. Then we go around to all of the other players, and they can decide if they want to conform or dissent, or pass. You don't have to do anything. If your dreamer is adjacent to the action that just happened, they can conform, Wherever your dreamer is, they can descend, or you can just choose to do nothing. So we just had maneuver. Marty can choose to do either because he is adjacent. If he conforms, he can produce a total of 2 in areas under your control, put 2 followers out in areas that Marty controls, or he can draw a card. Now, I spent all of the cards. I think Marty could produce a total of 2. Put a couple of followers out there. Be a bit stronger for next time, maybe. And then I get pushed off into this night area because the arrow tells me where to go. There's any number of people can be in these night spots. And then we would go over to the next turn where Marty would decide for an action. So Marty cannot choose to develop or maneuver because he's next to those spaces. Marty might like to summon, actually, because he knows I can't choose to conform because I'm not adjacent to that space. And if we look at Marty's player area, he started with the upgraded summon. So the summon action, usually, each of your forts produces 2. So your forts that you have built, usually through the fortify action. And then each marked area produces 1. Remember, the marked area is this symbol. So every space with this symbol would produce whoever is in control of it. So my starting area has the moon symbol, as well as Marty would produce 1 there, and the shadows would produce 1 up there. Now, in his upgrade, the conform and descent are exactly the same, but instead of each of your forts produces 2, each area you control produces 1, then the marked areas produce 1, get a movement point, and then do a conversion, and then resolve a conflict. So it's a kind of hybrid summon maneuver card. So Marty summoning, each area under his control produces 1. So he only controls a couple right now, but he can't produce here because it's full up. Each marked area produces 1, so I would get to put 1 out, and the shadows would get to put 1 out there. They're quite strong. Then he gets a movement point, and he can do a conversion in his shaper's area. So he could actually use the movement point on his shaper, convert this shadow into one of his followers, and then he can resolve a conflict. He can resolve that one right there. He's going to go small again with just his basic card. And then in the conflict section, oh dear, the shadow attacks and defends. Marty needed some more attack, really. So Marty's attack doesn't get through. The shadow's attack does get through. So Marty cannot choose to win in this one. He's defeated. Add 2 shadows to every empty area. And there are empty areas now, actually. Well, just the one. That area is empty, gets 2 shadows in it. He chanced it and failed. He wanted to keep hold of his cards. At the end of your turn as well, you are allowed to discard 1 or both of your dreams and draw up from the display. Because the dreams, like at the end of any player's turn, have at least 4 forts, 4 separate forts of any level. At any time, climb at least 4 steps on the ritual track in one go. At least one of them must have been blue. And these go into your discard pile and are worth these points. In the advanced game, this symbol means when these dreams are realized, the cathedral is built. But in the standard game, the cathedral's built after every turn, after our first turn. So all of that happened. I am not next to summon. So if we look at my summon, I can only choose descent. I can climb up a step on the ritual track, which is not too bad at all, actually. I do quite like that. And I'll just keep going with this. That seems quite nice to me. And Marty would slide off over there. And since I'm moving so much on the ritual track, why not show perform ritual? So on the standard card, which both of us have right now, climb on the ritual track, and you can do these in any order. You get a step up to a grey or blue space for free before or after spending followers and or units in limbo to climb any of the coloured steps. So you can see the symbols at the top of the steps are where you must sacrifice followers from. So this first step here, I would need to sacrifice someone from a tree space. I don't have anyone in a tree space, actually, so my free one could come from there, and then I could start sacrificing from the moon space to move up another space, and so on. But instead, I could have my free movement move me to the blue space first. We pause the climb, because this space usually would cost you 2 followers from 2 different spaces, which I could afford to do, but if I save here, this will work out better. So your immediate reward, 3 movement points, as we've seen before, or control a nightmare. Nightmares do not come out until the cathedral is built. So I can't choose that. So 3 movement points. I think my shaper will move over here, and I think I'll just move out here. Yeah, that'll be it for me. So the next space, I've had my free one first. Now I can pay. So you can pay from places with that symbol on. You can also spend 3 of your units from limbo to act as any symbol. So I can give up a follower from the tombstone space there, back to my supply, and I can move up that space. Now I've earned a victory point. I could even keep going, give up 1 from this space, even another. The next space is that as well. I mean, it's really hurting my presence out on the board, but I could go for as many as I want to spend, basically, and can afford to. So if I stop there, Marty's next to me again. He can choose to conform or dissent. If he conforms, he goes up a grey step. Otherwise, he draws a card. He should make a little start on it. He'll go up a grey step. And that's the end of my second turn. It's my second turn. The cathedral starts to be built. So we go along this path in order. The number of pieces out at the start depends on the player count. And the pieces have certain spaces. The rulebook tells you basically how to build the cathedral. So this space has one outside wall, so it's basically one of these middle spaces on the bottom. The cathedral gets another space, and everyone produces a follower in a place they control. So I think, why not go out there? Marty, actually, in a bad position for that. He's only in these two places, and he's got up to his unit limit in both of the places. So Marty would quite like to fortify, but he does in his hand have a fortify upgrade card. So why not first of all choose to develop, because the develop action, play up to 2 cards, a maximum of 1 of these can be an upgrade, then draw a card. So 1 of them can be an upgrade. Here it is. Fortify is spend 1 or 3 of your followers to build 1 or 2 forts in areas you control. And you can either have them in separate areas or they can stack on top of each other. If you stack them on top of each other, they can withstand some more damage. Forts can be attacked. Followers always get attacked first, but forts have 1 health per floor, and they can be destroyed apart from your actual fortress. So this basically means 1 fort would be free, or it only costs him 2 instead of 3 to do 2 fort levels. The rest of it stays the same, but also his unit limit has now changed. His unit limit is still 3, but 1 area can have 4 in it. And for his other card, he could either place 3 shadows anywhere and then climb a step to the grey space on the ritual track, or produce 2 shadows in an area under any player's control and resolve a conflict. And so, Marty could, he was going to hold on to these cards, he could grab this now, pop 2 shadows out where I am, and say that's the combat that he wants. It's nothing to do with him, but anyone can initiate any combat as long as it is valid. So I can only play 1 card. I have my ploy, a defensive card, or I have my basic combat, which is an attack card. I guess my ploy, I didn't really keep hold of cards. And then we look at the combat card we draw. They actually just defend twice. So we're all just defending. I lose, though, which means I have to retreat from this space and then defeat, add up to 3 shadows to an area of your choice which is not under an opponent's control. I guess we could go for this space over here, and I'm just spending all of my cards. So I, again, cannot choose to conform. I can only dissent, so draw 2 cards, pretty good option for me. And I can show you a couple more cards. An upgraded maneuver, instead of 4 movement points, get 6. And then the rest is the same. But I can only produce 1 in any area rather than produce a total of 2 in areas you control. So I can put myself in places I wasn't before. Or employ move your shaper anywhere, and then you can play another card that isn't an upgrade. So Marty slides out, but at the end of his turn, I could have done this at the end of my turn as well, but at the end of any player's turn, if your shaper is in an area with an opponent's fortress, that's why I put my shaper over there. I've got no real business over there. I've fulfilled my dream, and I can gain that victory point at the end of the game. That goes into my discard pile, and that's points I've got in the bank. And then at the end of my turn, I can draw up new ones from the display. At the end of Marty's turn, the cathedral keeps being built, and everyone can move their shaper to an adjacent area. I think, yeah, I don't really want to be down here. Marty could move himself out a little bit. So we've seen the basic actions and what they can do. As we take these turns and gradually progress on the board, winning little victories, getting rewards, the cathedral will start to take shape. At this point, when this piece is placed into the cathedral, you can start to see it take its shape. We have stage 2 versions of all of the decks. The dream deck, the development deck, and the combat deck. They all get shuffled in now. And the cards, as you might expect, get more powerful. So do the rewards from things like the conflict cards. The dreams get harder to fulfill, but the points are better. And the upgrades start being worth points and can be really powerful. So maneuver, we've seen 4 movement points, do a conversion, 3 conflicts. This level 2 upgraded maneuver, 5 movement points, command a nightmare. They haven't come out just yet, but commanding a nightmare is really strong. Then 2 conversions in your shaper's area, drastically change the outcome of who's commanding an area there. Then resolve 3 conflicts. Conforming produces 3 areas instead of just 2. And instead of dissenting to draw a card, you can devour a unit to produce in a total of 3 areas under your control. So all of the 2 cards get shuffled into their respective decks at that point, and then as the final pieces get put in to complete that Nightmare Cathedral, how far can I tilt it back before I let it fall apart? The game changes. We flip the Cathedral board to its Devour side. Nightmares emerge, and they don't need to be on this Devour board, but I'm running out of space here. And when I say nightmares, I mean nightmares. Look at this guy. Their minis go out next to the Cathedral, and then they will move onto an adjacent space when they are first commanded, and then they'll never go back onto this space. So when you have an upgraded card, like that upgraded maneuver, this is an even better one that gives you 7 movement points, but other areas of it won't be as powerful. When you do something that lets you command a nightmare, you can choose a nightmare, and as you might expect, command it. You can only command each nightmare once on your turn, but that does mean you could control both of the nightmares. You get 2 for your particular game. The rulebook does have some preordained setups if you want certain aspects of the game to be enhanced, or you can do it randomly. There are also cards in the development deck that can just be played that will let you, devour a unit to command a nightmare. There are many ways you can command nightmares, and on the ritual track as well. The blue spaces with this reward is command a nightmare. This nightmare, when it's commanded, will move exactly 3. In each area you move through, convert a follower into a shadow. And then in the final area, devour all units. For each converted unit, climb a step. So if I was commanding this nightmare, I could have it move 1, convert one of Marty's into a shadow. 2, convert one of Marty's into a shadow. And then 3, devour everyone. The devoured followers go into the devoured space. But why would you want to devour your own people? You need them to do everything else, to move up the ritual track, to have command over areas, because it can be worth massive points. And devouring shadows can make it harder for other players to earn points from the nightmares. At the end of the game, basically, whoever has the most devoured followers gets 8 points. Second most, 5 points. Third most, 3 points. In a 2-player game, of course, there's only going to be those 3 rankings. The shadows take one of these rankings, and nobody will earn those points. I also had 2 converted units, so I could move 2 more spaces on the ritual track. I only let you go up to grey spaces there. You wouldn't get juicy red spaces from just doing that. Or the other nightmare, move to any area and devour all the units there. If you devoured at least 2 of your own, you must discard 2 cards. Otherwise, you can draw a card. Of course, if you devoured loads of your own units, you're probably earning points from that, so you should be held back a bit. But if you devoured other people's followers, you probably helped them. So Marty could have the nightmare jump right to here, his 1 area he's allowed 4, and have all of those devoured. Sure, he would have to discard 2 of his cards, but suddenly he's getting 8 points. We keep going round and round until the game ends at one of these points. Either we've gone around 3 times. Every time we go all the way around the track, we move this marker down, and when it reaches 4, that's going to be the end of the game. Or we go until a certain number of units are devoured. For this number, we look at the 2 nightmares, we look at our player count, which is the leftmost number in a 2-player game, 2, 3, 4, and you look at the highest number, because the ones I happen to have drawn here have got the same number, 12 on them, but different nightmares can have different devour amounts. So as soon as 12 units are devoured, we've devoured 7 right here at this point. So that would trigger the end of the game as well. If the end of the game is triggered by the turn marker, it just ends immediately. If it ends from the devour count being reached, we keep going until everyone's had the same number of turns. Then you get points from the ritual track. So the highest space that each of your markers have reached. So Marty has gone past the 3 and the 1. He would get 4 points from the ritual track. Over here, I've got up to the 7 and just past the 5, so I would get 12 from it. Every level 2 fort is worth a point. Every level 3 fort is worth 2 points. So right now, Marty would only have 1 point from his level 2 fort. Devoured units, though, you saw right now, it would be 8 points for Marty, 5 points for me, and then third place is taken by the shadows. But if Marty could somehow, have done some more devour powers or control the nightmare one more time and maybe hoovered up a couple more shadows, knocking me into third place, that would be even more advantageous for him. And then your upgrades, as we saw, these level 2 upgrades can be worth points. Even if you have covered up an upgrade with something else, you still dig through all of your piles and pull out all of the victory points that you earned. Then, any points you earned from completed dream cards. Add up all of your points, and the most points wins. So you can see that for a load of reasons, the different nightmares that are going to be in the game will make a big difference to their ability, how big a deal certain aspects of the game are going to be. Certainly, like devouring, the limits can be quite different. How often and in what manner you're allowed to activate them can change. And of course, having a load of your followers devoured is really helpful, but it's really going to hinder you if you needed to spend them going to these really high spaces on the ritual track, for example. Or you were trying to vie control of something to fulfill a dream towards the end of the game that was really lucrative for you. So there we go. That is Nightmare Cathedral. I hope I gave you a good idea of what the game is about. If you are intrigued and you would like to know more, I will link the Gamefound page in the description and you can check it out. It's got a few more days left and you can see all of the details of how to get it, how to make it happen on that page. If you'd like to see more from me, hey, subscribe and stuff. That would be really appreciated. There are hundreds of playthroughs and things on this channel. Hey, one just went up for Founders of Teotihuacan, another recent game from Board&Dice. You can also support me on Patreon if you would like. Hey, that's all in the description too. Thank you very much for watching this though, and I will see you for the next game. Bye everyone.